Hi guys, welcome to NinjaCast. Today we welcome the insanely talented Sam Docker. This is a bit of an exciting one for me as Sam was my wedding photographer back in December 2019. Sam is an award-winning photographer who doesn't pigeonhole himself into a particular genre and instead looks at his work as an artistic collaboration between several different styles. Sam's down-to-earth, authentic and storytelling imagery speaks for itself, but I hope you guys are as excited as I am to welcome Sam Docker. Welcome Sam, how's it going?
Very good, Sally. Thank you. How are you?
Good, yeah, I'm really well.
Nice to hear from you. Not spoke to you for a few months.
I know.
How things have changed.
I know. I can't even believe it. You shot our wedding back in December, and we were having this raving party on the 29th of December.
Feels like a different lifetime ago, doesn't it? And it's what, 4 or 5 months?
I know.
It's crazy times. But no, I hope you guys are well.
Yeah, we're doing really
Busy?
really well. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice and busy here. How about you there?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Tackling a lot of those to-do list jobs. They're getting looked at. The house is having some work done on it as well, and just sorting out those little odd jobs that need sorting out. And weirdly, I'm quite enjoying a quieter pace to life. Actually, I have to admit, it's definitely feels like a really nice little reset for a lot of things, doesn't it? And just stopping and just taking stock of everything. So it's nice. There's definitely some positives too. Yeah, definitely. When what are we in? We're in May now, aren't we? And it would just be right. All hands to deck now for weddings. It would be firing all cylinders, won't we? But it's a very different pace at the moment. So
absolutely. Well, it'd definitely be something to look back on and be like, God, do you remember when we all spent like 3 months?
Absolutely. Spent all of our evenings doing quizzes and drinking.
Absolutely, best way.
Yeah.
So I know we've previously just touched on it there, but obviously I was really lucky to have you as my own wedding photographer back in December.
We had a good day, didn't we?
We did. It was so lovely.
Are you pleased with it? Are you pleased with how the day went? And
yeah, definitely.
Was it what you kind of anticipated?
Yeah, absolutely. Even up to the day, on the day and afterwards, everyone just kept saying to me, you're so chilled, like you're too chilled. But I was just enjoying it. Like it was lovely
good
to have somebody else taking the photos and go, it's not my job today, it's not my
I think when you work because you work in the industry, you get to see it all as well, don't you? So going into it what the pitfalls for a lot of couples can be, and how if you don't chill out and enjoy it and make the most of it, that you can very quickly just sort of say goodbye to the day and be like, oh, absolutely. What happened?
So fly by. I did feel like every bride says you blink and it's over, and I felt a couple of times I was like, God, where's the day gone? But we were mega lucky to have you as our photographer, so I'm like really
thank you for inviting me up to Scotland. I loved it. We had a good time. The beach was stunning, wasn't it? And just it was just nice just to go and just be somewhere very isolated and just have a good old party up in Scotland.
So obviously some of the listeners might not know that you actually limit the number of weddings that you shoot every year. Is it 25, right? Is that
So this year, before all of this stuff happened, 23, 24 was going to be the limit for this year.
Amazing. What kind of made you decide on that? At what point in your career did you say, do you know what, I just want to do this many? And what reasons was that for?
There was no like real trigger. I think it was something that kind of progressed over time, but then I definitely accelerated that decision by, when our son was born, Buddy, in sort of 2015. I'd already started to shoot a few less each year. And I think it really just boils down to a work-life balance choice, really. I've said to so many people on workshops and conferences, like, I love weddings. I love going to weddings, but the only downside or major flaw to them for me is that it takes me away from home on a weekend, and it's such a difficult thing to do. It's difficult when you are, if you're just in a relationship and you just want to be at home, but when you've got children as well that come into that equation, it's really difficult. A lot of
on the heartstrings, isn't
God,
it?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, people look at like destination weddings and photographers that do them and like have this real kind of almost envy for it, but they're not what they're made out. They're not as, as sort of glamorous as people might make them believe, might make you believe, this, as great as I love going to those weddings, I'm away from home for 4 days. And that's really tough. So for me, it was really just about trying to get my business to a point where I could still earn money, I could still do what I enjoy doing, but it didn't take up every single weekend of the year.
Yeah.
You know, and I look back to the first few years where I was maybe charging, like we all do, you all start off charging 800 quid, a grand, 1,200 quid.
Yeah.
For me, if you do some simple maths, if you want to earn 50 grand a year, you've got to shoot, potentially 70 weddings a year there by the time you've taken your expenses out.
Yeah.
I mean, 70 weddings a year, just the idea of doing that makes me feel a little bit uneasy, doesn't it? So there's that. But then also really just I give a lot to my couples, and I put a lot of effort in on the day, and just to physically be able to do that many is really difficult, know. And I'm not one of those people that I could never just be a photographer that just turns up, takes a few photos, buggers off home straight after, as soon as the first dance finishes. I couldn't do that. So to be able to do that, to be able to give a lot to my clients or my couples and do 60 weddings a year, I'd be 6 feet under. I just wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, it's tiring. I think people underestimate how tiring being a wedding photographer is.
Oh, absolutely.
People that aren't in the industry, or friends, family members, they go, you just you go take pictures at a wedding. Like, what a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So much
and
fun.
there's and as you know as well, there's the mental pressures of it. The constant that fear every time you format a memory card. That's there every single time you do. Have I backed these images up? If you've got 3 weddings on a weekend, I just wouldn't be able. The anxiety levels go through the roof, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
So yeah, just a combination of work and life, and just trying to get that balance back a little bit more. And the only way for me to do that was to increase my prices, and to therefore, that allowed me just to shoot less weddings, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like that's changed your business, I presume, for the better? Obviously, it's definitely made things better for you in terms of work-life balance. Do you feel that, your business has changed in any respect there?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's freed up. It's freed up a bit of time to work on other aspects of my business. So, one thing, a couple of years I started doing workshops, and I never realized how much I'd quite enjoy doing workshops. That's something that has definitely surprised me. You kind of go into it worried, are people going to want to listen to you? Are people going to get anything from you? And then actually when people start to take things away and give you positive feedback, that's a really great thing. And just allowing me to balance the day-to-day runnings of the business a bit more, rather than constantly feeling like I'm up against it.
Yeah.
Here's maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I can remember going into the summer months, and you've got holiday coming up. You're like, I can't take a week's holiday. I can't do it. Mm-hmm. I've got 12 weddings to edit. I've got 30, whereas now it's more like, I've got 2 weddings to edit. Okay, well, that's cool. I can switch off now. Mm-hmm. That is fine.
Yeah.
So I think just being able to switch off, it just allows me to switch off. It allows me maybe to spend, I can come into the office on a Tuesday now rather than a Monday.
Yeah.
I can get the weekend's wedding called and get that out to the couple. I can spend half a day just doing some marketing stuff. Yeah. It just takes the pressure off a little bit, I think, and just allows you to, focus on the other parts of your business that need attention, rather than just being like, shoot, edit, deliver, shoot, edit, deliver.
Yeah, like a conveyor.
And just when that happens, you just feel like you're drowning a little bit, don't you? I think sometimes.
Absolutely. I think from the sounds of things, it maybe brings the enjoyment back a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a bit of a personal question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
What was it like shooting another photographer's wedding?
Yeah, do you know what? I get asked this quite a bit, and I suppose it's the same as you kind of just said earlier about how it was nice to be at a wedding and it not be your job. I never kind of see it as though I'm there working. In a really weird way. I put the pressure on myself to deliver and to produce images, and I don't ever think that my couples will that pressure will come from them as much as it comes from me.
Absolutely, more pressure on.
So I set the standard, and I just try and I almost forget who you are and what you do. Anyway, it's just like you're just Sally. I just want to be at your day and just to have a good time and to be involved and to work hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, I suppose I think when I look back on getting into weddings, and I suppose when you look at your traits and your personality traits, I've always just been one of those people that just say, I'll do that. I'm a say yes kind of guy, and I just give something a go. And I think that's really when I look back on it, it's a really positive thing to have. Is that just almost like a no fear approach to something of just what's really going to go that wrong? Some people can handle that, and some people really can't. You know, I've got friends who are great photographers, but they would never go near a wedding. They just the pressure of it and the expectation on them, they just feel it too much. Whereas I don't really feel that, other than from me going, I want to make some good images here.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to stand in the park and make sure
and also like understanding how you work as well, and knowing that if I go to a wedding feeling like that, or feeling anxious or pressured, like I'm not going to do my job. You know, I know that if I go to a wedding and I enjoy myself and I get involved and I work hard and I keep myself busy, like the images are going to arrive. Like once you kind of realize that, you're taking the shackles off a little bit, aren't you then?
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of just enjoy the day and know that it'll all work out.
Yeah. And people react differently to you as well. If they see you enjoying yourself, as you'll know, you know, they react differently to you.
Yeah.
If I was standoffish and anxious and worried, they'd feed off that. In the same way that people feed off a bride and how she feels. If she's worried and anxious, they're worried. Whereas if a bride's upbeat and jolly and like, yeah, come on, let's have a great day, everybody's like, yeah, let's have a come on, let's do this.
Yeah. I love it.
So yeah, no, I didn't really feel it too much from you. That was fine. But
just like any other wedding, that's how
yeah.
Amazing. So what does the day-to-day running of Sam Docker Photography look like? Can you walk us through kind of your process? You've already said that you try and, you know, a big key for you is making sure that there's a lot of family life balance.
Yep. I think the first, like the one big change to come out of the last year or two really was kind of just making sure that I give myself a bit of time off. So, you know, for the last wedding season, I had pretty much every Monday off, rather than coming in the office and being like, right, I've got to get on with work. I'm like, right, well, I've worked on the weekend. You know, a lot of my mates don't work on a weekend. They get it off. And do you know what? I'm going to have Monday off. I'm going to just spend Monday to do what I want to go and do, you know, take the kids to school, do a bit of, you know, home admin, you know, just go and, you know, go out for a ride, go for a run, whatever, just look after myself, do my food shop, all of that stuff. So that's a big thing. And then coming in on a Tuesday, I'll generally kind of cull the wedding that I shot on the weekend. So it will have already been backed up at some point on the way home from the wedding. But I try and, rather than just leaving it to sit for 6-7 weeks, I'll cull it very first thing. So before I do anything else, I go through that wedding. And the purpose of that really is because I want to get images out to my couples. I want them to sort of get 40, 50 images as a little preview. I want to be able to post them into Instagram and Facebook and do a bit of marketing from that point of view. So I'll get it called. I'll select some, you know, standout favorite images from the day and just do a little quick edit, get those out to my couples, catch up on some emails and just sort of do a bit of marketing. That's generally on the Tuesday. By the Wednesday, then it's probably a case of, right, just picking up the edit that needs to go out by the end of that week and just trying to get on with that side of things. You know, I'll try and drip feed a blog every now and then. I haven't blogged for a few months now, but you know, I do during the wedding season. I do try and make sure that I keep on those jobs, because you know, if you take your foot off the gas and you don't do those jobs, you know, you have to constantly drip feed your marketing and stay on top of it. So yeah, I'll do a little bit of that. And then really it's just about, maybe by Thursday I'm just trying to get the wedding out the door and get it delivered. And that's it really. And then by Friday, you know, then before you know it, you're on Friday and you're getting ready for, you know, another weekend, aren't you? Or you're at a wedding on the Friday. You know, I do a little bit of commercial work as well. So sometimes it might be that, you know, one day's gone to that, or, you know, workshops, and you can very quickly fill a week, can't you, as a wedding photographer? It doesn't take much.
Absolutely. And is there any pieces of software that you found that you use throughout your processes that you think really help you out?
Yeah, there's definitely a few key bits of software that I use. I mean, Photo Mechanica is my sort of go-to for culling. I know Lightroom's pretty quick now at culling, but when I've been using Photo Mechanic for 6 years now, and it's just it's so intuitive and just simple to use that's my kind of go-to. And then obviously, you know, Lightroom for editing, and I've always used keys to edit my images. So I use Pfixer keys. I used to use Visco, but that got discontinued. So I have a Pfixer keys, which is great. I've just started using Tailwind actually for scheduling. Yeah. So I've used a couple of other apps before. But literally in the last 3 weeks, I started using Tailwind, and I've been really, really impressed by that. It's just, again, just sitting down to make sure you plan it and you auto post it. I think the worst thing you can do, like, I hate just sitting on my phone. Like, I have to have a word with myself and just go, come on, this is just, so just making sure it's done.
Of that though, aren't we?
Yeah, oh God, absolutely. And it's so easy to do today, isn't it? Just to sit there and scroll through your phone for 15 minutes. You're like, what a waste of 15 minutes. So just trying to do that and just plan my time so that that's done and I haven't got to worry about it. So that's been great. And then I suppose we're on a Studio Ninja podcast, aren't we? So I should really mention how Studio Ninja's been. And you know what? I find it really. I remember. I think Chris emailed me about a year and a half ago to say, I've got this. I've got this program. Would you be interested? And I just kind of just pushed it off to a side because I was using something else, and it was like, do you know what? This one works for me. I can't really be bothered to have to change everything and look at it. And it wasn't until I think me and you had started talking, and you told me what you did, and then we had a little bit of a hangout, didn't we? And just you showed me through a few things, and I thought, actually, do you know what? There's a few features on that look pretty good, and I think the ones that stood out for me were just it was just the automation side of it.
Yeah.
My other software, it was great at keeping data and holding that data, but I still had to go in and manually send invoices or, send out the wedding form or send out the contract. Whereas when I looked at Studio Ninja, the big appeal to me for using it was just that it would send the invoices for me when I wanted to send it.
Yeah.
And it would send the contract and it would send the wedding form. And
so the whole quoting system and being able to kind of follow through from quote to invoice to contract to questionnaire.
And just to know that was being done at the time that I wanted to do. I wanted it doing. So rather than being like, oh, I've got 3 weeks before this wedding. I haven't sent them their final invoice. Mm-hmm. All right, I need to chase that up now. Whereas with Ninja, it's like, that went out 45 days before the wedding.
Yeah.
They've got the link. They've got the backs details. It just streamlines it all a little bit more, and makes it look and the way it looks to the client as well, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah.
It's under that one tab. They've got the contract, they've got the invoice, and they've got the form. All under that one link. Job done. There's no messing. So that's been a real help. I mean, obviously during the situation, it's been difficult to try and get your head around a new system, and then obviously the situation that's going on with postponements and all of that. But given that it has been a tricky time to manage, actually, it's been pretty straightforward so far with Ninja, and I've been massively impressed. It's definitely been a positive addition to the business. So
that's lovely to hear. I'm really glad that we can kind of help photographers out like that. I mean, obviously I work for Studio Ninja now, but before that I was a Studio Ninja user as a photographer. I was with them for about 3 years before I joined as part of the team, and I always just remember thinking, this is a game changer. Like, this has completely changed the way I run my business.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really does give you so much time back, doesn't it? Which,
and that's what it comes down to, isn't it? It's time. It absolutely is. It buys you time to do the other things in your business that you need to go and do. Too many people neglect their marketing or their blogging or their website or all those things, but they get bogged down in editing and they get bogged down in admin.
Yeah.
So why would you not streamline that and just buy yourself a bit? And if it means that you get to do more on other parts of your business, or you get time back to go and live your life, then it's just a win-win, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's really easy for photographers and filmmakers out there to neglect your marketing and your SEO and all that side of things, because a lot of the time it's a thing that they know exists, but you don't necessarily know how or have the full knowledge to be able to go out there and smash it and do, everything that you need to do. It kind of becomes a bit like the elephant in the room, if you like, doesn't it? Yeah. Like, it's there, but you're not sure what to do with it. So do you have kind of any tips for people that, top 5 tips, top 10 tips on what you would recommend marketing wise and SEO?
Marketing. Oh, it's a really big field, isn't it? I think one of the biggest, most important points for me is just consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the biggest bit of advice I would give to anybody starting out or anybody that's struggling with it, is to be consistent. When it comes to sort of just like social channels, and I suppose this is just a sign of the times, there are so many options out there. You can't spread yourself too thin. I think it's important as well to be consistent, but to pick one or two channels and do them really well, than to pick 6 or 7 channels and pick one up and then leave it for a couple of months. So for me, Instagram is a no-brainer. It's so powerful. Obviously purely about images, so it's an absolute go-to. Facebook probably doesn't have the pull that it had sort of 4 or 5 years ago, but it's still, you can still get really good reach from it. So again, just duplicating that content across to Facebook is great. I still find just the power of blogging to be really, really useful, and then just getting images out to suppliers and to blogs, and making sure that, or trying to encourage people to do your marketing for you, I think is an often overlooked tool. And one thing I talk about on workshops is just like the power of like using your clients and their weddings is a form of free marketing. I go to weddings and I don't just shoot them for my couples. I shoot them for everybody that's at the wedding. I want my couple's guests to have images. I want them to go away and to be able to talk about the wedding photographer that was there, and look at the image they got. Because you're getting them, they're doing it for you free of charge. You're not having to pay them to do that.
So that's a perfect example. Like at our wedding, we had one of our friends, and they had a newborn baby just before Christmas, and we took a beautiful shot of the mum cradling her little baby, and he was asleep on her shoulder. It was the most gorgeous shot, and I think they've got that blown up big in the living room now.
Amazing.
Like
and that's a living room that people are going to go into, and they're going to talk about it, and you're giving people a reason to positively talk about you as a person and as a photographer. And the knock-on effect, if you go to 20-30 weddings a year and you've got 20 or 30 people from each of those weddings going away going, this guy was, or this girl was really good, the marketing reach there is enormous.
Absolutely.
So that's often a side of marketing that I think people they just think, how do I get my what does my website need to look like, what should my logo look like, and actually forget about just going to a wedding and working hard and getting those shots for people that people are going to have and love and talk about, and do give you that sort of free marketing tool. And then what were we talking about? Did we say top 5 tips?
So
is that what we were going for?
Any tips
on SEO or on just general marketing?
A little bit of both. I guess they kind of fall under a similar umbrella, really, don't they? Like SEO, your marketing, and I think with SEO, like that's definitely a big kind of scary term for a lot of people. People hear that and they just go, I don't know what to do with that. Yeah,
I think SEO is a tricky ground. I think the first thing that I would say to anybody is that there is no magic SEO formula. There is no kind of gold dust that you can sprinkle over. It takes just honest, consistent work from you as a photographer and a business to produce a good level of SEO. I also don't believe there's a way to cheat the system. Like Google isn't stupid. There is no shortcut. There is no quick fix. If somebody phones you up and says, I can get you to page 1 by next week, I would genuinely just put the phone down and just laugh them off. Like that isn't possible. So firstly, don't try to cheat the system, or don't try to cheat Google. And then really it becomes just about kind of, I suppose, writing engaging content and relevant, and using relevant keywords that are applicable to what it is you're writing or posting about. So if you're writing about a wedding that you shot at a venue, it's totally fine to put the venue name in the title and what have you, but don't just keep jabbering on about the venue name just to purely get the venue into your keyword in as many times. Drop it in, but talk about it and talk about the venue and the couple and the wedding, and make it an engaging article, not just they've written. If you're writing it for Google, you are making your first mistake. You should be writing it for the end user. So that's probably, is that the second or third one? I'll tell you what, we'll just give you some points, shall we? And if they're 5, then it's 5. If it's 7, it's 7.
That's the best.
In terms of like your website, I mean, Yoast SEO plugin is a really good tool. For those that are going to blog, and if you're going to use blogging as a as a strategy and as a tool, again, you've got to try and just be consistent with it. And if that means you blog once a week or once a month, great. But don't blog 3 or 4 weddings one week and then not do anything for 6 months.
Yeah.
You've got to try and just keep drip feeding those signals to Google, and they've got to see that your site's been updated. So, but yeah, Yoast SEO is a great little plugin just for kind of, I suppose it's like a traffic light system, isn't it? For kind of just making sure that you've got the keyword in there, you've got the right level of content, and a few links, etc., and the title's correct. Yeah. And then the next one is really just I think we touched on this a little bit at the start of the question, but targeting like blog posts and suppliers and just encouraging them. I think I remember when I first got into this, people would be like a bit protective about their images and being like, oh, should I charge them? I'm going to invoice that supplier. If they want to use my images, they need to pay me. Like, no, just like give them the images. Like,
nice.
Give them the images, be nice and say, look, if you want, here's the images. I try and get my suppliers' images out to them within the first week if I can. Like, I try and just give them a few little images from the preview post and say, look, here you are, guys. Here's your images. Feel free to use them. If you just give me a shout out, that'd be great. Mm-hmm. And generally, 9 out of 10 suppliers will credit you in their Instagram post, or if they blog it, they'll link back to you. And it's like, well, there you go. Perfect. That's worth the image sharing for me. Like that justifies me sharing the images with them. Yeah. And then, getting images.
Let's say that 1 out of 10 that doesn't credit you, that doesn't, tag you in the images on whatever social channel. There's a lot of kind of debate, I guess, about like, do you sweat that? Like, do you?
I have got far more things to worry about than going after the odd supplier that doesn't credit me. Uh-huh. Like, it's just not worth your time, is it? Really?
Yeah.
Like, I just think you can use your time better. If you want to go after it, go after it. But I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. It's,
And do you watermark the images that you give out to them?
No. I just don't like watermarks and images. Mm-hmm. So no, I think just being nice and just, being forthcoming and just giving them the images. They're like, a lot of suppliers are like, wow, like I didn't normally get images this quickly off the photographer. That's great. And instantly you're building a connection with them, aren't you? And
absolutely.
And it's amazing how many venues can then recommend you, or, how many makeup artists, tell you, future brides and grooms about you, or, the knock-on effect is more than just them crediting you on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Again, it's that positive reinforcement and that positive tone that you're going to give them, and that they're going to, be able to recommend you for future clients.
Definitely.
And you do find, as you shoot more weddings, that brides and grooms who go to one supplier tend to use similar suppliers in other fields as well. So, you're just building that spider's web, aren't you, of contacts and connections.
Definitely.
So that's really powerful. And then I suppose as well that the final SEO one would be, I suppose when you're building your site is to write your homepage and to target your location. Mm-hmm. And to remember, that you are, Google is, it is location centric. It does use your location as part of its algorithm. So trying to say that you're, I don't know, maybe a destination wedding photographer, as a lot of people want to try and be, you need to remember that, you might be based in, I don't know, somewhere in Wales. You're based in a location that Google knows you are based in. So you need to focus that keyword on your homepage to be your location. You need to rank well for your location above all else, really. And don't try and just sort of overcomplicate it.
Amazing. Fantastic. That's some really great tips. Thank you very much for that. I know that I'll definitely take some of those away and write them down on some paper for the next time I'm on a little SEO day.
Yeah. We all love a good SEO day, don't we?
Do indeed.
But I do think that is it. I think it is just about, just trying to make little changes, or, just keep drip feeding content, and, not trying to cheat it or think that there's a way around it. We're all trying to compete with it in one way or another. Mm-hmm. You just have to write the right kind of content and not try and think that you can, there is a short-term fix. There is no short-term fix.
Absolutely. That's great. So obviously you describe your approach to wedding photography on your website as a non-labeled style, which I think is amazing. Like, there's so many photographers out there that try and fit themselves into a box, or they pigeonhole themselves and say, well, I must be documentary, or I must be this. So can you kind of delve into that a little bit more and explain how you feel that you use different styles at different points of the day?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I find it really hard to say that I am a particular. I don't know. I almost don't see my work as a particular style. I think it's just me. It's a reflection of me going to a weddings, and it's how I interpret that day. Some people would say that is documentary, and I would say the bulk of the day is documentary. But there are pure documentary photographers that wouldn't take portraits of couples.
Sure.
And family portraits I still think are massively important and can be just done in a bit more of a relaxed way. So yeah, I think it is just about just accepting that there isn't one style that I take to a wedding, but there are lots of different things, and it's about kind of just interpreting that day and that moment and that scene as that's really what people are paying for, I think, isn't it? Is for you to be able to interpret that moment and that scene in a fraction of a second and to be able to document it.
Yeah, kind of through eyes.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I see my job on the day, and that's why when we talk about going to a day and just enjoying yourself and keeping yourself busy, they're the cornerstones for making good images for me. Is by just constantly moving around, constantly looking for things, constantly engaging with people, and enjoying myself, and just trying to make the most of the day. And then in terms of style, I suppose it's about kind of understanding and remembering that we all have a different take on things. You could send 100 photographers to the same wedding, and not one of them would document it in the same way. There wouldn't be 2 weddings the same out of that, and that's because we all consume content in a very different way. We're all inspired by different things. I have a different background to everybody else, as everybody else has a different background to me, and all of those things play into how you document that day.
Absolutely, definitely.
And I think it's just understanding and remembering that. And I talk on my workshops about how certain films or TV series or Netflix shows that you watch, how they influence you as a photographer. And we all watch different stuff. We all consume different content. But it all has an impact and an influence on us as photographers and people. And I think it's just recognizing and remembering that, really.
Definitely, that's fantastic. So obviously, alongside the amazing images you shoot, your branding is pretty awesome as well. So having seen your client experience firsthand from you shooting my wedding, your brand is a real integral part of your entire business, really. It runs throughout it really, really well.
Thanks. It's really nice to hear that, actually. Because it's so easy to forget sometimes that people do have that experience. Yeah, so just to be told that is a really positive thing.
It's lovely. I mean, it was great from my point of view to be able to go through that as a bride. Obviously, I am a wedding photographer, so that's always going to be in the back of my head, and I've always got that thing popping up going, oh, that's quite nice, or I really like that.
Yeah.
But from a bride's perspective, it was just lovely to see that it felt like you were really in a customer experience the whole way through. There was this whole branding element from start to finish, even down to the very last images that we received in the presentation box, the USB, everything. So do you feel that branding's a really big part of kind of being a wedding photographer and running a wedding photography business?
It's absolutely integral to what we do, I think. And I think, you just touching on those points there, I think kind of made me think, well, I've been allowed to work on that because, again, I'm shooting less weddings, because I'm not shooting 60 weddings a year. I think trying to keep that level of consistency through 60, 70 weddings is really hard, but to try and do it through 24, 25, 30 weddings is a lot more easy to manage, isn't it? But really, we're all brands. We all have a brand, and a brand really is kind of, it's more than just a website and a logo. Like, I think people always say, "Oh, what's what is it? What is it?" It's just a logo and a website. Well, it's a lot more than that, because a brand really should be letting your clients know what to expect and what they're going to get from you. But it should also then deliver on that, and it should actually over deliver. People should get more than maybe they think they're going to get.
Yeah.
And you'll know as well. Like, I try not to push or promote maybe the box that you get at the end of the process. And I don't do that too much. I do tell brides they're going to get that, but I don't do it too much because I want there to be an element of a surprise at the end of it. And that, because it makes you feel like you've got something really like special and like tangible. It's there and you can feel it, and it feels very, it's a lot more premium than maybe just a an off-the-shelf box that I bought. I've had it custom built because I want clients to get something that feels a bit more like it's got, I don't know, a bit more longevity to it, and it's a keepsake sort of thing. So, just thinking about those things and that experience and how people are going to react when they receive that item is huge. And I think, again, when we talk about branding, and we talked about this at the very beginning of the conversation, really about like consistency. This is one of the big mistakes with branding, is that, again, people are just too inconsistent. And whether that's with their emails or their website or the images they show, like, inconsistency for me is one of the biggest losses of inquiries that you can possibly, I don't know. It's like, if people don't know what they're going to get, or they're unsure, or they have doubts over what they're going to receive, they're going to go to somebody else that they know what they're going to, like, is more consistent, because they want to know what they're going to get.
Wedding photography is a kind of trust thing, isn't it? Because they're paying for something, or paying a deposit for something, and even their balance before they even have the product.
Yeah. I mean, I talk to couples on their Skype calls about their wedding photos, and I'm like, I don't know what your photos are going to look like. I genuinely don't. Like, I'm going to go to your wedding not having a clue what's going to happen, but I can guarantee what is going to happen is that I'm going to try and document it in the way that you see my work on it. Like, all the images that you see, I'm going to keep myself busy and I'm going to get involved. And again, just sort of reinforcing that idea that it's, I don't know what's going to happen, but this is what you're going to get. I'm going to give my all for you, sort of thing. But I do think a brand is a lot more than people give it credit for. And I often think, actually, sometimes that's probably where we as photographers might fall short a little bit, is that because we're photographers, because we maybe know how to use Photoshop as well, and therefore we can build websites, we can do our brochures, and sometimes actually that's not always the case. And sometimes you need to recognize that and accept that maybe that isn't your forte. Your forte is to be a photographer and to do that job, and sometimes you've got to recognize that outsourcing that job is a worthwhile benefit. But I do think sitting down before you do that, whether you do it yourself or not, or send it to an agency, is irrelevant. People sometimes don't often think about the bigger picture of who it is they are, what they're about, what their style is, what they're drawn to as photographers. When I look at photographers' portfolios, the one of the biggest and most common mistakes is they show way too much variety. They're showing far too many different styles of photography. And again, it comes down to consistency, and it's like, who are you trying to please? Like, are you trying to show off to your photography mates, or are you trying to attract bookings? If you're trying to show off to your photography mates, I can guarantee it that you're probably not going to get the bookings and the brides and grooms that you want to get all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they don't know what you're about. So I feel like we've jabbered on a little bit there. Have we kind of ticked it off?
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge one to tackle, that SEO. I think it's just kind of touching the tip of the iceberg, really, isn't it? Starting to talk about it, but the tips are fantastic. And I think the biggest thing that we take away from that for Sam Docker, consistency is king.
Consistency is absolutely king. Yeah, it's a huge thing. But it's thinking about sometimes even the little things. It's like, it's even sometimes what you wear to a wedding, like remembering that is part of your brand. That is part of people are seeing you, they're forming an opinion on you very quickly, whether you like it or not. You might be at a wedding and you might have been paid to be at that wedding and you've done your job in terms of selling, but you are still selling when you're at that wedding. You're still your brand. People are still seeing you and people are still going to talk about you. And if you're not remembering that and thinking about it when you're at a wedding, you're missing a trick.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of, it's really easy to focus on all the smaller elements of a brand. So like you say, a logo, a website, marketing, all that side of things. I think, a big thing in this world is that people buy from people, and
absolutely,
or your biggest,
great point,
your biggest marketing tool, aren't you, as a person? So that feeds completely into what you were saying about.
And you can apply that to every single business. We can all relate to that. If you get a good builder, you keep that good builder, don't you? If he's a nice guy and he works hard and you like him, you're going to go back to him no matter what he charges, within reason. Same with a lot of plumbers and electricians. If you get a good one, they're worth their weight in gold, aren't they?
Hard to come by.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all had a bad experience with a builder, but anyway.
So kind of moving back to something you touched on a little bit before about inquiries. So you receive a phenomenal amount of inquiries per year. I think you've said before between 200 and 300. Is that right?
Yeah. It can sometimes go above 300. It's
what would
staggering,
you
really.
say are your key tips for photographers aiming to increase their inquiries and increase that conversion from inquiry to booking? Have you got any advice on
that? I think we've kind of touched on a few things already, and I'm not going to keep harping on about consistency, but I do think trying to, again, trying to focus on one or two channels really well, and to make sure that, remembering that your website, it is your shop front. That is, that's your window and your portal into people seeing you and making that opinion, and it has to be something that sucks people in and attracts them within a fraction or two of a second. There can't be any delay on your website. It can't be not your very best work. It's got to get them in straight away. And then in terms of converting, again, like we've just touched on in the last question, it's like people buy from people. And again, just remember, like, not going straight into like wedding chat. I think it's a really big thing to be able to just to hold a conversation with a couple for a little bit, and just to not have to talk about weddings and let them get to know you a little bit and make it personal. One of my big bugbears with photographers that have an about me page, but then their picture is of them behind a camera. It defeats the whole point of you having an about me page. Like, I want to see who you are. If I'm buying from you, I want to see you. I want to see, show me your family, show me what you get up to. Like, you're not going to appeal to everybody. And again, it's important to remember that you're not trying to appeal to everybody. It's okay for some people to go, no, do you know what? That guy's not my cup of tea, or that photographer, she's not really my style. But that's totally cool. I'm only trying to book 20 weddings a year. I'm not trying to book 300 weddings a year. So really, I just need to appeal and connect with 20 couples. And also, so when I Skype or FaceTime or Zoom couples before they book, I'm hoping that they've already made their decision that they want to book me. They're really just wanting to chat and to get to know me a little bit and to make sure that I do exist and I'm not a complete psycho. That's all that they're checking for.
Absolutely.
So again, it's just being upfront and simple. And in fact, this is a big point actually. It's just making things as simple and as straightforward for them as possible. The more obstacles and hurdles you put up for people, and that might be making it hard for them to contact you through your website, or making the pricing page difficult or difficult to understand. There's lots of little catches and things to do with your website in terms of when people are trying to figure out what it is you cost or what it is you're about, what you offer. Like, just be really upfront and open and honest about stuff, and I think people really appreciate that. I know it's a big thing amongst photographers to be like, oh, I don't put my prices on my website. It's a really big debate, and I'm not here to tell anybody that they should or shouldn't do that. I can only talk from experience and knowing that from day one, I have always put my price on my website, and I've done it because I don't like to have to go chasing after somebody to find out how much they cost. I just don't. And it's amazing how many couples that I chat to that say, do you know what? It was so refreshing just to see your price on your page right from the off, and to go, okay, right, well, that's how much it is. Right, well, do we and take it from that. I understand why photographers don't put their price. I understand the reasonings for for not putting their price on the site, but for me, it just doesn't work. I think just being honest and open up front with couples straight away really helps you, get them in, and just to be able to, make that conversion early on. I know that if they're chatting to me, they already know how much I cost. They've already decided whether they can afford it or not. So I'm not wasting my time and they're not wasting theirs.
Yeah. You've always kind of got halfway there.
Yeah. So it's very, very rare that I Skype a couple and don't convert that inquiry. And I put that down really to being very honest and open and upfront.
Amazing. That's the way to be. Fantastic. So we're going to move on to some of your more notorious images now, I guess. So your dance floor images are pretty insane. We had some amazing ones come back through from
We
our...
love a dance floor. Best part of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Where everyone lets loose after a couple of drinks.
Yeah, too right.
So what's your go-to setup for this portion of the wedding?
Some people even propose to their partners on the dance floor, don't they?
Yeah, that happened at our wedding.
Yes. Yeah, so what's my go-to setup?
Yeah, so do you have, when you get to that part of the day, do you think to yourself, right, I need to go back, I need to get this lens, I use a particular flash setup, or do you use natural light? Like, where do you go?
Well, I mean, again, I think before we get onto like the technical side of it, I think, again, it's worth just pointing out, like, me staying on the dance floor and making that effort to stay a little bit later, again, is part of my brand. It's part of what makes me sort of maybe stand out from other photographers, is that I don't leave straight after the first dance, and a lot of the couples that book me do want that part of the evening documenting. They want to know what happened at, 11:30, 12, 1 at night, they want to see that. So I definitely use that as part of my marketing and part of my branding, and just, again, it's part of what just makes me sort of stand out maybe from a few other photographers that they might be considering. So that's the first thing. And then in terms of actually shooting it and making it, work, because I remember when I first started to shoot weddings, I always found it difficult to leave the dance floor, because I knew that there were things. I just find it hard because there's stuff happening, and whenever there's stuff happening, it's difficult to just turn your back on that. But I remember staying for the first year or two of weddings, and my conversion rate was just really low. As in, I would take a hell of a lot of shots and I wouldn't get a huge amount of what I would consider usable, technically strong images. So I kind of found myself just saying, why am I doing it? Why am I spending 2 or 3 hours of my night and coming away with maybe 20 or 30 images? I should be coming away with 200 or 300, really. So I just spent a bit of time just trying to, just educate myself and just make sure that I was set up in the best way possible. And again, it's amazing what you can do by just stopping and just taking a bit of time out just to educate yourself on settings and just understanding flash, off-camera flash. Really, when you break it down, it's really simple. I don't know. It is a bit of a fear and a worry for a lot of photographers. It can be quite intimidating. But when you think about the absolute basics of just, now I just use bounce flash on one camera. I don't even use off-camera flash now unless I absolutely need extra light in the room, and it has to be, with today's kit, that I used to shoot on the Mark IVs, you can push those to 12,800 ISO and have more than usable images. Like 3 or 4 years ago on the Mark IIs and IIIs, you would never have dreamt of that. Whereas now, so that's a huge advantage. So I don't really need to use off-camera flash now as much as I would have done 2 or 3 years back, because I've got extra ability and room in the camera to be able to push those settings a bit harder now. So really, my go-to settings are really just a bounce flash on one camera, and then on the other camera, I tend to just shoot ambient a lot more. Again, it has to be an absolute dungeon of darkness for me not to be able to get something on that camera. The only time that tends to happen is maybe if it's outdoors, if it's like a wedding abroad and people are dancing outside, then that makes it a little bit trickier. But there's generally still lights from the band or the DJ or whatever, so you can still tap into that. And then the third setting I use is just a bit of a shutter drag. So that generally tends to be used if it is really dark, because it's just a really simple direct flash, and it just, my conversion rate for that is 9 out of 10 frames. It's an absolute nailed on way of just getting shots in the can, really. So when I compare what I documented maybe 4 or 5 years ago to what I document now, my conversion rate is probably more like 90% as opposed to 10, 20% back then. So, it's just understanding those settings and just, having a bit of a play. And if you're, as a photographer, unsure as to, you shouldn't be going to a wedding worried about doing that or experimenting. You should just close your curtains, get your partner in the middle of a room, turn the lights off, and just practice about, how do you expose it? How do you focus on them? And then you go to a wedding and then what systems are in place and how you're going to use that to document the dance floor.
Definitely. Amazing. That's fantastic tips. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
So we're going to move on a little bit now to talk about achievements. So in your career, do you have a biggest achievement to date that stands out for you?
I think this was the hardest question that you put on the sheet for me. I don't know, like, is it? I almost think just being fully booked every year is an achievement sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, when you really stop and think about it, like, you can look at awards, you can look at, you know, a few things that I've got, and that's great. Like, it's brilliant to be recognised by peers or, you know, by another body and what have you. But actually, just to be a photographer and to be busy and to be doing something that I enjoy doing, and for people to still want to book me and to hand over their hard-earned pennies to ask me to do that job, I still think is a massive achievement. And I'm never going to, I don't think I'll ever take that for granted, really. I don't think I'll ever take for granted just, you know, that the trust that couples put in you to go and do a job.
Yeah.
And then again, like, I suppose, I think we touched on it earlier about like workshops. And I think one thing that surprised me over the last year or two is how much satisfaction I've got from people that have been on the workshops. And it's one thing, you know, I remember when I started doing the workshops, it was a massive worry that people are going to just come here and they're going to be like, well, I already know that. Well, what, really? No, it's a bit rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a real fear. Yeah. But for people to go away and say, actually, no, I've got a lot of stuff out of that. And then 6 months down the line to get a message from them saying, I'm really busy now, and to see them become full-time wedding photographers or to go to another level and to charge more, I think that's been a massive achievement. And one thing that I never really expected when I started doing the workshops, I kind of just did it as a way to, I don't know, to maybe shoot 1 or 2 less weddings a year. You know, I do earn money from workshops. I'm not going to lie about it. It's, you know, it's an earner. But the main reason for doing it was, at the time, was to shoot 1 or 2 weddings less in a year. So to then see the added benefit of it being that people are saying, yeah, thanks, that was really good. I took a lot away from that, and then going, I'm fully booked next year. It's great. It's a really positive thing to hear. So
amazing.
So yeah, I think those 2 things really are the big ones for me.
They're amazing achievements. I love it. So we're going to start to wrap up now. Just 2 questions left. So if you could share just one piece of advice, maybe something that really made a difference in your business or your life, what would it be?
So I'm going to go back to before I was a wedding photographer, and a lad I used to go to school with who I actually now sit alongside because I rent a desk in their office. I remember telling him that I was thinking about, you know, I was thinking about getting into photography. I was doing this and I was doing that, and I was kind of getting into graphic design as well a little bit, and yeah, looking at a few. I was just a bit lost really as to what to do. And I remember he just said to me, I still remember where we were in a pub in Derby, and he said, "Look, mate," he said, "you can't be everything to everyone. Like, you can't. You've got to pick one and just go for it." And I still carry that with me now, and I still say it to wedding photographers who are I just want to shoot weddings. It still applies. You know, you can't. We touched on it earlier when we talked about like not needing to book 300 couples, just needing to book 20, just needs to book 30. That's it. You know, I'm not trying to appeal to everybody. I'm not trying to do everything for everybody. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to do what I do for the people that want to book me. So I think that's the big one. That's the big one for me.
Fantastic, lovely. Well, we're coming right to the end now, so thank you so much for your time.
No, pleasure. It's been nice to catch up, Sally.
Absolutely loved it. It's been lovely to chat again. So if our audience want to learn a little bit more about you, have a look into your workshops, have a look at your work, or maybe they're even getting married themselves and want to inquire with you, how do they go about finding you?
So there's this thing called Google, isn't there, I think? Can you just type? So samueldocker.co.uk. And you can find me on Instagram, obviously, as well. So yeah, just have a look, and people can either drop me a message through Instagram or through the website. Amazing, fantastic. Right, well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sally. And I will see you very soon. Amazing. Thank you very much. Cheers. Right. Bye-bye. Sam, thanks. Bye. Okay, guys, that's everything from us today. I hope you really enjoyed the show. Sam was absolutely phenomenal and shared so many great tips with us all. For the show notes and a link to Sam's website, you can head to www.studioninja.co/episode 3. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.